Hello. Welcome to the first ever Isle of Fitness 100 pound podcast. Because this is the first time that we have sat down, I have sat down with an Isle of Fitness superstar that and recorded him achieving an incredible result of losing 100 pounds to date. He's actually Mr. Joseph McDormand here is the guest star today, and he is down to date 104 pounds from 345 pounds to 240 ish there before the Christmas break. If you are a dad and you want to lose 40 pounds plus, and you may be checking this out, and you're like, okay, Sean, I've seen all the proof, I've seen the testimonials, I'm seeing the interviews, I'm seeing the before and afters, but you don't want to sit through 30 more minutes of evidence, but you would like to lose 40 pounds plus, maybe 100 pounds plus, just like Joseph here. Please send me an email, Sean, SEAN, at islofitness.com, or send me a DM on Instagram saying launch, and we can have a chat. What we do at Isle of Fitness is we help dads lose incredible amounts of weight, get in fantastic shape through building sustainable, enjoyable, effective habits, as opposed to doing horrible, miserable diets or extreme exercising or fad BS that may help you lose weight, but it's not going to be a long-term solution. I've done this work myself, losing 46 pounds as an obese, out of shape dad. The changes were so good that I was like, I want to help other dads do it. I studied to become a NASM personal trainer. I started at Isle of Fitness, and in our 5th year of operation, I have coached 100 nearly 180 dads, hundreds of men and women, and thousands of men and women through a group coaching setting. Today, it is a pleasure to introduce Joseph here as the guest star of this conversation. To give you a bit of background about Joseph, he is 52 years of age. He is a girl dad and a teacher, and he has tried and not succeeded multiple times before to lose the weight. And I'm excited to talk to Joseph, see what his journey has been like, and give you, at the very least, if you are a dad that wants to make similar changes, inspiration, hope, energy that you can do this too. I am not special. Joseph is not special. Any dads that do and succeed at this is not special, but there are some things that are a prerequisite if you are to win for good. So, Joseph, welcome. It is awesome to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, Sean. It's an honor to be here.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Okay, Joseph, um, we connected on social media. I'll get into a bit more about that. You were someone that, dropped a follow on my page. But before we get into like kind of what our relationship looked like at the very start and going from there, I would love to know. Uh, you were at 345 pounds before we started working together officially. What can you tell us? What life was feeling like for you as a husband, as a father, as a teacher, as a girl dad? What did that look and feel like for you?
The best word I could describe that is just kind of lethargic. I always felt like a step behind. It wasn't that I wasn't as active. It just felt it took more to do stuff. It took more energy to do stuff, and I felt more drained. And I just didn't like the way I was feeling. I didn't like the way it just it was a lot of I didn't likes the like fact the fact that you're walking up a bank of stairs and you're winded. It just there was just kind of this part uh, lethargic, lagging. You're still doing it because you still got to get the work done,
Yeah.
but it's just there was the amount of energy that you had to put into it was I think also part of that was like what I was eating. You're a busy father, you're busy, and so you're eating on the run, and so part of that was uh, trying to figure out uh, you know food and being on the run. long story short, you do the work, but I wasn't liking how I felt or felt, feeling or how I looked. So
Okay, can relate to a lot of that. Can you tell me, this is the thing that gets this is what resonates in my experience, right? Can you tell me, you're going up two flights of stairs. What's happening after what happened after you went up two flights of stairs? Like what did that look like?
huffing and puffing, a
Yeah.
little bit of sweat.
Yeah.
It's again, it's not the best feeling in the world, right? You're following your kids upstairs, or you're just following in general up a hill, and it just like all of a sudden you're winded, and it's not a great feeling.
Yeah.
It sucked. That's
Yeah.
probably the best way I could put it. And you remember a time where this wasn't a big deal, and you feeling old, you're feeling fat, there's a bunch of kind of these kind of things that are going through your mind, and then you kind of start this kind of negative spiral down. And so for me, it was just kind of like, wow, another thing that I've let go.
Yeah. You said they're, feeling fat, and I would love to know what that felt like for you. For me, back in the day, I hated being a kind of the chubby hubby. And I think my energy when I thought about it was schlubby, like schlubby energy. Like that's how I was showing up, as like this lazy, soft, unfit version of myself. And that was, I think people, when they think about fat, you know, for me, it's the behavior behind the word rather than maybe even just the physical appearance. If you don't mind sharing, would love to hear what was your, you hated feeling fat, feeling.
I mean, for me, it's you can't see it unless it's sort of reflected back at you. So for me, it was always in like pictures or looking at myself in the mirror. A
Mhm.
lot of actually more of pictures, just like that's me. That's
Yeah,
who I am now. I mean,
yeah,
it just, for me, it was like the beach whale. You felt schlubby. I felt like a beach whale.
yeah.
I felt and looked like a beach whale. There, I had some Christmas pictures that my wife just kind of sent me because after this transformation, I look different. But I look at those pictures and I'm just sitting down and I look like a beached whale. I look like the Blob from Marvel Comics. It just didn't match the picture I had in my head. But the reality and my view of it didn't, weren't reconciled. I think part of this process is kind of was fixing that. The idea is that you'll hear a lot about this with other people. They have a better relationship with food and food management. I think that's the kind of the biggest thing that I've learned so far is that how to manage food. I don't think you ever kind of deal with it completely, but I think just managing your food and just trying to and kind of reconciling feelings for yourself, because even if you're in the process, and I know I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but you know uh you kind of have this image of yourself, it's 3:45, you know and for a while you're doing the work, you want to have that because you never want to go back. We always talk about that 3:45 mindset.
Hmm.
For me, it's kind of like the reset. But I don't, I think the mindset's one thing. There, being physically that big again, I never want to do that again.
Hmm.
Never want to do that again.
NFGB, we have an acronym in Isle of Fitness, never fucking going back.
No.
Okay. And thank you for sharing. Like this is tough. Like it is. I hope it feels, Joseph, easier on the other side of 100 pounds down, to talk about this. But at the same time, like when you were 345 and you're feeling like a beached whale and you're looking at those photos, like what was your confidence looking like in turning it around?
Well, early on, because again, anybody who's been this big and trying to lose weight will, have done it multiple times, at least try to, for the most part. I can only speak for myself because I've tried a few times. I think like when early on in our discussions we talked about, I had lost, a few years ago, I had started a weight loss journey, was doing something with an app online, and I got down to 305, and then, you know, and then life happens and you bloom back up,
Mhm.
and so, you know, that was difficult. I mean, it's just kind of this kind of yo-yoing, hammering process. And that was difficult because you can do the work. It just, how can you manage it? I think that's the biggest thing here is, the idea in terms of this weight loss journey is, again, kind of management, health management, mental management,
Mm-hmm.
food management, all of that. That's been kind of the focus I've been having in terms of all of this is this idea of managing. And, again, those looking at those photos, when my wife sent me, they're, fantastic as kind of motivation because, don't want to go back. Just all the dealing with all the health issues. I think before I started the weight loss journey, I was pre-diabetic. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
done a blood test in a while, so
Can't wait. Cannot wait.
uh, probably the doctor's going to look at the chart and look at me and like, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to die. I'm 52, almost 53 years old. My father died when he was relatively young, the same age as I am, and I think part of that as a father, you just don't want to leave that burden. So part of that is the motivation as well. So I know I'm jumping around, so I apologize,
No,
but
no, no. Absolutely. Like, that is something that we talked about as well. And just I want to talk about that. You know, I want to touch on just what you said there. This is real shit. Like, this is not like I need to lose 10 pounds. This is like if I don't take serious action now,
yep,
it's like the worst consequences can happen. We can hit me and you talk about this, we can get hit by traffic, we can get struck down by serious illness, but our weight is something that we can by and large manage, and be take action on preventatively, to mitigate that down there. And I appreciate, Joseph, like that was in your head as well, and you did not want. I'm so sorry about the loss of your father at such a young age. You know what that pain was like, is like,
yep.
and you did not want to have that for your girls.
Yes, do not want to have that for my girls, especially because they were younger. I was 19 when my father passed away, and my eldest daughter, I think when we started the process, had just turned 14, or was about to turn 14, 15. They're just, I have two daughters, 14, now 15 and 11, relatively young, in the prime, just kind of getting ready, being teenagers. I just don't want them to go through what I had to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, life is going to be difficult enough for them as is, and didn't want to be, that concept to be an extra burden. Didn't want to have to go through that kind of suffering and that kind of like, what if? I mean, this is something controllable. I lost my dad to cancer. Um, this is control. This for me was control. This is something that I could take direct action. I knew it was going to suck. There's this great kind of slogan in the special forces, embrace the suck. And,
Yeah.
I think that was kind of part of this process is understanding that, you know, there was a little bit of discomfort now. I think there was also great things on the internet. What's the, suffer now? Was it the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to embrace this pain of discipline. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm going to fail. I'm not going to fail, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just, trying to get back on the horse and just kind of the idea of what's bigger behind it. What do I want to do? What, the kind of the end goal. And just for me, it's just kind of being part of my daughter's lives, not just like a blob on the beach, not that fat whale, just kind of actively being part of it, uh, so that's a lot of the motivation.
I love it. And then, I can't wait to, share about, what how you're the level you're operating at now. Um, Embrace the suck, failing, being okay with failure, and knowing
Yeah.
that it's not the end, and you
Yeah.
pick yourself up and you can, turn it around. Whether if it's not the next day, you can do it. When you get that point where like I had a shit breakfast, a shit lunch, but I'm actually going to have a solid dinner. I'm going to get out for a walk. You
Yeah.
turn on a dime during the day. Okay, mama. So Joseph, love it. I want to share about how we connected here, and going back to, I think it was July 2024. You dropped me a
Yeah.
follow, And we had an interaction there, and it was like, hey, I was asking you how you doing. Are you here for the content? Are you here to look making changes? Like, I'm here to make changes. And over the next 8 months, there was little snippets. I would talk to you every couple of months, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
I would send you a message. You would ghost me, and that's fine because that happens. And then it'd be like, I need to do something. January 25, you said we need to talk, but it wasn't until March last year, March 2025, that we finally connected. I think it was maybe late February, the start of March. Can I ask you on your side, because this is interesting to me, and I think it's interesting and valuable to dads that are watching this. What was your experience of me, a stranger, a coach, a weight loss coach on Instagram, reaching out to you and continuing to like poke at you?
Well, I think initially it was the content about, okay, here's, you were talking about the idea of, being a dad and how to lose weight loss, from as a father in a busy life. I think that's one of the things that kind of like, I remember watching it was a long form video on Instagram, and I think I clicked on it, had gone on to YouTube or something like that. Anyway, I had just looked at it and I like it. Okay. I said, this is something I can wrap my head around. I liked what you were saying. I clicked on it, and then you DM'd me, and we started chit chatting. And then, it went from kind of the abstract to more real. And that's kind of that interesting threshold where, also the idea of being wary. I think one of the things about Instagram is because it's kind of such an open form, there are hit and misses. There are people out there that, this is their business and they're doing, how they're advertising. And there's also shysters who are, trying to sell you snake oil. I'm a little longer in tooth. So I think for me, it was that, and I had been down this kind of road before about, losing weight and, online sources and online this and that. And it just, I was wary of it. I think also just kind of the idea of, I knew what the work had to be done. It's just the idea of trying to wrap my head about, all right, kind of committing to that. And
Yeah.
I think that as we were going through the process, it was more not necessary. It was more about me kind of accepting what I had to do on my end about trying to get there. I think for the most part, in terms of transforming your life, whether it's, giving up, some sort of habit or food or diet or just switching jobs or whatever, the idea is you have to wrap your head around it. There's, that you can know what you have to do and then actually have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, this, the part of it was a little scary, the idea of, I've been down this road before. I've done okay by myself, but I haven't, been able to, that 300-pound barrier. That was the kind of this kind of wall that I would get to, and like, oh, I'm 300 pounds, fine. I'm not 340 anymore. Okay. So, and then, take a moment to celebrate. And then 3 months later, you're back at where you started because, you've lost that focus. I mean, it's scary. I mean, the idea is you're putting yourself out there. You're kind of giving yourself up that a little bit of that autonomy that, and you're saying, I'm putting my trust in a person that, you live on the East Coast, I'm here on the West Coast, 3,000 miles away, and, up until this, you're just kind of this entity on Instagram. And then we kind of started talking, and then I think it was for me, and when we were doing when we were having that half hour and I was in my classroom, and I was just kind of like, I'm just tired of it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore. And, it just, you get fed up because, I was 345 pounds. I was working out 3 or 4 times a week, it's something I had to give. I'm either going to kind of, Lincoln said, a house divided itself can't stand. I was a house divided. I couldn't have my feet in both these worlds. So I decided I had to kind of a leap of faith.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And that was kind of my question, was like, what made you finally say, I can't keep doing this? And you kind of touched on it there. It's like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being 345, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm tired of being 345. I'm working out 4 times a week. I keep hitting 300 pounds and then rebounding back. But what was that it, or was it, what was it that you were tired of, or was that it?
I think it's a combination of all these things coming together. My father had died when he was 52. I had just turned 52 when we were talking, and uh, this idea of being there for my kids, just kind of being present, just being a better person. Um, and I think it's just the idea of like I've tried this on my own, and I had some success. And, so I know I could do the work. I think what this allowed me now is the idea of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, doing it by yourself, you're only accountable to yourself, and that voice in your head will tell you, and that voice lies, that, hey, you can take a few weeks off, or hey, you can have that entire cheesecake or that, half that pizza, and you'll be all right. And then, that starts a, 3-week binge, and,
The may as wells are the fuck it's, as we talk about.
yeah. And so, I think for me, in terms of what the kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back is, all right, the idea is I'm going to invest myself. This is much as about, kind of me doing the work, but the idea of having faith in myself and just putting some skin in the game. I already have skin in the game because it's my own health, but even more so.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of, okay, I don't have all the answers. I need some help. And so kind of being able to kind of let go of that fear, that anxiety, and just kind of like, all right, I'm going to ride this wave. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to like it. But in terms of this and what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do, I haven't done it yet. So
Mm-hmm.
if this works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, c'est la vie. At least
you've tried.
You've done everything.
Yeah.
I have done everything I can to kind of deal with this. And it's interesting because, we talked about this, this almost your relationship, just the amount of work and, the bouncing right now. You were very gracious. And, at the beginning said that I lost 300 pounds. I'm not 100 pounds, had a little bounce back, over the Christmas break and just kind of resetting. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think before this, it would have been led to okay, here's the spiral back up. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
this time, no, because I feel I'm better equipped, not necessarily completely ready, but better equipped to kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, you've had a setback, back to the grind.
This is I was talking to another partner client today, Joseph, and I was like, we're early in the process. Like, this is going to be a journey. You're going to have to do all this work, whether it's with myself or someone else or by yourself. Like, your work, you're going to have to do the work, whether it's by yourself or with me, and love our relationship partnership. But it is a journey, and it's all, I hope it's fair to say that the good, the bad, the gritty make up the magic. And just because you have done 100 pounds plus of weight loss and you're feeling much better and you're incredible shape and getting really healthy, that doesn't confer you allowing the next 40 pounds, because you got to do the work. And that as long as you keep showing up, and not every day is a beauty, and as long as you keep showing up and you have this system that you can manage these things better, you can't lose. Okay. You sort of touched on there. I just want to ask you briefly. What did you try before? You said you tried an app. What was the app about, and other things that you tried before?
The big one is what's that? Zoom.
Noom.
My wife.
If you tried, thank you, Teresa. If you had tried Zoom, that's probably not going to work out. But Noom, yes, Noom.
Noom was probably the one that I tried, and again had some success early on. Because again, kind of, it's interesting because a lot of this, when you're dealing with kind of rebuilding your life, this kind of boot camp there's a lot of psychological aspects to it. You're dealing with, and I think that's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't really kind of talk about, or it's kind of implied that, there's a reason why people behave the way they do. The reason why I think for me, a lot of, maybe a lot of dads, and maybe this might resonate with some people, is that, for some of us, food was kind of our only kind of break or a reward because our lives are so busy and we sacrifice so much. So the idea of, all right, you know what, that McDonald double cheeseburger, that Wendy's Frosty, or that whatever is my reward, and that, and so, and then this kind of this there's this. And I don't mean to kind of take this down this road, but this kind of psychological crutch where food is not just it's your living to eat. That's that concept, living to eat instead of eating to live.
Yep. Yep.
And so I think that's part of the weight loss journey, is kind of coming to grips with a lot of that, the kind of these psychological, environmental kind of cues and impacts that kind of triggers, I think that's the better term, that, kind of start individuals, a lot of time is boredom.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
um,
At the girls' practice or something, or you got a bit of time to kill.
No, I think it's kind of, for me. It's not one of that. It's the in between times. It's the times where, like, most of the times when I get in trouble is when I'm by myself and I have nothing to do,
Mm-hmm.
and so okay, let me eat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so I think that's kind of part of it as well. So it's and because you're busy, you know. So that, the idea is you kind of, for me, I overindulge in that, or the idea of, speaking of the girls, the idea of trying to get, eating from, on the go. That's also it. I enjoy a good meal. So uh, that becomes that, like I said earlier, this luxury, this kind of like, treat yourself.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. Yeah.
that I used to, you work hard. Teaching's a difficult position. Being a father is a difficult position. All this is tiring, and there's no break from it. You don't get,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get a weekend off from being a parent. You don't get a week off. Kind of like teaching as well. For
Yeah.
me, uh, there's always something that I have to get done, and so
A very
it's
stressful job, and speak as a I'm a husband to a teacher as well, and that is it's hugely stressful.
yeah,
Can I ask you, we're touching on this, did I deserve it? I deserve it because I'm so busy
yes.
and I haven't got the time. I deserve this. Can I ask you, what was your experience when you're eating that double cheeseburger from McDonald's, but you're also 340 pounds? Because for me, a bit of context, contextualize that. For me, I would be having the large number one with the lemonade from Chick-fil-A and the strawberry shake with the cream on top, whipped cream and cherry. And it
Ooh,
was delicious, but I didn't feel good inside. It was this sort of friction between, I'm eating tasty food and I deserve it because this is all the pleasure that I'm getting. But also, for me, I'm speaking for myself, I hate that I can't lose weight and I can't get in better shape. And I'm going for the large option all the time. Can I ask you, was there any of that going on? Was there any of that going on for you? That friction?
I think it was kind of more like buyer's regret. In the
Yep.
moment, no, not
Yep.
regretting,
Yep.
because it was kind of like, all right, yes, this feels good. This is in
Yep.
this moment of bliss, and then it's
Yep.
the reality afterwards, right?
Yep.
For me, it was the double quarter pounder, large fries, and either the extra large Coke at McDonald's, or the Habit, or actually, here's my better fat man meal for me was the In and Out, 4x4, four batteries, four cheeses, animal style fries, large Coke. That was my kind of like ultimate, kind of like, okay, that was like my reward for surviving the week.
Yep.
And again, it was always buyer's regret. In the moment, no, didn't regret it. But
Yep.
afterwards, the idea is, okay, I'm going to the gym, and, I'm plopping in at 345, 350. And, the idea is you're fighting against yourself. You're
Yes.
spinning the wheels on both ends. So the idea is, uh, you know, all the work you're doing in the gym is being unraveled by, my sense of entitlement.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And
you
I
know,
do the other thing, Joseph, I do want to ask you is this, because I love what you said earlier. There was, from what you said, I had to let go of the fear. I had to let go of the fear that was stopping me. You said, I didn't have all the answers. What I was doing wasn't working. And also tied to facing reality. Like when, you said earlier when we were on the call and we're talking about potentially working together, is this a good fit? you were tired of being where you were. For me, there's a big theme in what I'm trying to communicate here is about, us dads that are in a spot we don't want to be, finally acknowledging and facing reality. And then that first step of I am nervous, I am fearful, I am anxious, I am scared, but I gotta do something.
Yeah,
Does that sound right?
that sounds exactly right. I mean, it just kind of it gets to a point where, you know, and there'll be a lot of dads out there that that have done this and were able to do it on their own. And God bless them. Congratulations. And I tried. And there are dads out there who are trying. It's not that we don't want to lose weight. I mean, that's it's that people are trying, and this is hard. You know, and I think you got to come to grips with that. It's going to be hard. Like I said earlier, you have to kind of embrace the suck.
Yep.
That this is you're gonna those things that you kind of gave yourself, you're gonna have to deny yourself. As a father, the idea is life is hectic enough. Again, if this was in my 20s and before I was married and before I had kids, I think it's a lot easier because you can just focus on yourself. This is a little bit more difficult. Because you have to, yeah. For me, it was fitting in the work. Finding slots to fit in the work. For me, it was the moment this program started. I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and walking 2 to 3 miles, and then once we progressed to the rucking, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to walk 3, 4, 5 miles in the morning with 40.
Okay,
50.
okay. Hold on, because we're gonna scare people here.
No, but
Yeah,
it's not about. Here's the thing, it's about embracing that.
yeah, yeah,
It's if people are already scared, it's just about kind of like, okay, this is real. This is what you
yeah,
got to do, right? And that's for me. That was
yeah,
for me. Whatever somebody else has to,
yeah,
if it's later in the for me, it had to be early in the
yeah.
morning.
You had to get it. That was your time.
Yeah,
You had to get uncomfortable, and you had to make the time early in the morning
yeah.
because once you got off from work and you had kids, girls' activities with girls, dinner, all that stuff. That is what worked for you. But my question was, Joseph, okay, so January 2025, you're like, let's chat. March, we finally chat. You are famously my St. Patrick's Day client, Joseph McDormand, started in St. Patrick's Day. Can you tell us, what what was it like starting the program? Kind of the good, the bad, the gritty, the ugly, if whatever you care to share.
Um, I think getting the program and the launch program and kind of looking at it like, all right, figuring out when I can do the good is, all right, you're taking steps, you're taking actions. You've kind of crossed that threshold, you cross that barrier, and then figuring out how you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of like, all right, well, you know, I'm kind of an early bird anyway, so I think I'm just going to wake up a little extra earlier, go to bed a little extra earlier,
Yeah,
and that's so that time in that morning, that 4:30, 5 o'clock slot, I know I can take care of my business.
yeah,
As a teacher, sometimes I would wake up that early and grade, and prepare for the day, so it wasn't uncommon for me to do that.
yeah.
Um, so I think that was the understanding for me, was kind of understanding of the work that had to be done. I think just the gritty of it is just getting the work done. That's
Yeah.
it. Again, you can imagine, that there's a great line from the Matrix. There's knowing the path and walking the path, and
Mm-hmm.
literally, I was walking the path.
Yeah.
I had known what I had to do for years, and now I'm literally on this path, and trying to manage that, and trying to I think that again, kind of incorporate this new aspect into my life, um, and being okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
not. And I think for me is, there was always a point where I knew there was going to be a kind of a point of rebellion. Like I'm just going to, you know, early on, like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, one of the great things about, the early weight loss process is you see you see, you'll see this, you'll have a huge dump of weight early on. And that's kind of both the awesome and the kind of the trick as well, because you
Yeah.
think, oh, this is going to be easy because I've just
Yeah.
lost 10
Yeah.
pounds in a week,
Yeah.
and I'm going to lose this in a month. And no, that's just
That water weight whooshing out there.
weight, and then the idea is that, by week 8, week 9, for me, it was still getting up. And then it's the kind of wait, drop, wait,
Yeah. Yeah.
drop,
Yeah.
little bump, spike, drop,
Yeah.
drop, drop, spike,
Hold the
drop.
line. Hold the line. When you see that
It's
spike, hold the line.
the elevator. But I think for me, it's, taking a look at our, the first 3 months, the first time you lost that, I think I lost like 40 pounds, 42 pounds that first month. And I was, I went
The
into
first 3 months.
the first 3 months,
Yeah.
and I had in that short period, in that 3 months, I went from like 345. I think I started with the program at 337.
Yep. Yep.
And then, by the time summer hit, I was in the 290s.
Yeah.
And, I think for me, that was kind of helped create this kind of positive feedback loop for me. And that helps sustain. But, again, there are times where, again, for me, it's for the bad is the work has never been the issue for me. It's the idea of, for me, it's the management of food. That's
Yep.
kind of for me. And I guess could be for everybody for the most part, is your relationship with food, and still trying to work that out. I'm, doing a great job kind of managing that, for the most part. But in my process now, the idea is, okay, what's this going to look like, 4, 5, 6 months from now, when, I don't have a trainer and I have to do this on my own. The idea is that when the training wheels come off, do I have the discipline? Do I have the knowledge to kind of keep this going forward? And for the most part, that's yes. It'll be bumps, absolutely. But I think the idea is I can manage that better now. I can manage those speed bumps better.
It would be fair to say you're mentally stronger now and more resilient.
Yes.
And as well, just I want to say as well, like this work is hard, and being at 300.
Sean.
What? Sorry.
That's an understatement.
It is, yeah. Being 345 pounds is hard. Doing this work is hard. Denying reality of your situation is hard. And this isn't just for you. This isn't for you. This is for everyone. This is for me.
Yeah.
I believed the scale was broken. I believed the clothes the clothes making factories in China were making the clothes smaller because they didn't fit me. I was delusional and denied reality, but that was hard. Not being able to look at myself in the mirror was hard. Feeling ashamed of how I was showing up as a husband and a father was hard. You doing this work, myself doing this work, dads that do this work, it's hard. But if you've got a good plan and you stay consistent and you see the benefits and you keep showing up, it does get easier. And you're well on your way there, Joseph, to being at an amazing place where it's your new normal. But it is hard. And anyone out there that's saying, no, it's easy and it'll be done in 2 weeks and blah, 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 it's not going to happen. But it's like, embrace the suck. I love that one. Choose your hard. Do you want to be in your 50s and, going up to 300 pounds above? Or do you want to be getting up a bit earlier and going for a walk? I know which one I would choose. And again, this is not to you. This is for all of us dads that are in that place where we're struggling. It's hard as shit, but I would rather be. I did 3 miles this morning at like 6:30. I'd rather be doing a walk at 3 miles at 6:30, getting out of a warm, cozy bed, than not being able to look at my wife and sons and daughter in the eye because I was just like a version of myself that I was sacrificing how I was showing up as a husband and father for excess crap, excess junk. That was it. So anyway, it is true. It is hard. It is hard work, but I think you're on board. It is far better than the alternative, Joseph.
Yeah.
Okay, my man. Got a couple more questions for you. Can I ask you? So we're on the program. This is very quickly, but how has it been working with me?
Fantastic. I mean, one of the things that you do when you make this decision is the idea is that I think for me, it's the idea of accountability. The idea is that I needed someone to basically, put their foot in my ass, And again, that might be difficult for some people because, it was for me, it's just the idea of like, this is what you're doing, this is what worked, this is what didn't work.
Mm.
Um, and, the concept of, okay, stop your bullshit, get back to work. I think
Yeah.
that's the kind of the best thing about this is like, all right, you had, something happened, deal with it, move on,
Yeah.
get back to work.
Yeah.
I think that's the best aspect of this is the idea of, for me, was accountability. Again, the concept of you as a trainer, I think the term partner is this: you're helping me, uh, chisel, get myself, in shape and to become a better person. I think, I think to give yourself the opportunity. That's not necessarily what you want to. I want to say you could be already a good person. It's just a better version of yourself.
A
That's
better
it.
version. That's
A
what I
better
think. I think,
version,
yeah,
updated version of yourself. I mean, you have all these qualities, even before that, but I think it's just kind of like, literally, losing the dead weight. Pun intended. Just the concept of being a better person and just mentally disciplined. It's also interesting because the idea of what you're doing is not just in there for yourself, but is seen by other people. It's seen by what your people in your family and your family and your community do. And that again, that kind of helps create that positive feedback loop. It's slow in the beginning because only you know what you're doing. But after, like,
yeah,
3 months, people are like, "Are you losing weight?" And at first, I was like, again, kind of like blinders. For me, it was just grind. And then, in about month 3, month 4, you're losing weight. And then your wife knows, and it's. I think the biggest thing is the impact of your kids seeing it. And the kids seeing you going through that struggle, and that you're embracing that struggle, and you're okay with that. And because what you're trying to do is model how, adversity. I think that's such an important concept to teach our children, is at how to deal with adversity. As parents, we don't want our kids to go through anything. We want them to, we want to shield them, but that's not the reality.
yeah.
The idea of, you know, this work is hard, and your kids are seeing it. I think I think a kind of an interesting added benefit is that the impact that you see this on with your family, your partners, your wife, your all this stuff, husbands, what I mean, your kids, and I think that's also kind of undervalued. It's not really kind of talked about, the kind of,
Yeah.
because it's more intrinsic, the idea you shouldn't be doing this for outside of validation, but that, human beings like that, and
You
for
got
me,
it. You got a lot of compliments at work.
yes, you know, and still do. I mean, it's interesting because there are a couple of people where I work out, Carson CrossFit or Regenix here in Southern California, and one woman a little bit older than me, about 54, Irene. She calls me Skinny Minnie now. Um, my mother-in-law, who was just every time she sees me, she thinks I'm disappearing. So
Yeah.
it's that's nice.
Good.
It's okay for you, and for I mean, I'm of that generation that, and also just a dude that, you don't take compliments. But
Irish Catholic. No.
yeah, yeah, Irish Catholic. But, it's, after a while you're like, yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it
And you've
validates the
you've
work.
earned it. You've earned it.
Yeah,
It's earned it. I know. Okay. A couple of things. Your point earlier. This is not about being superior to anyone else because you're working out.
no,
And that has never been a motivator for me. But it's like, for me, and how I worked it out, Joseph, was living at your potential, living at your
yeah,
highest potential. Do you want to be the Joseph McDormand that is huffing and puffing after going up a flight of stairs? Or do you want to be the Joseph McDormand of 245,
yeah,
225, that is playing with your daughters, swaggering around when you're out on a date with Teresa? What feels better to you? What quality of life is looking and feeling better? And I think it's like, it's the potential rather than feeling or being superior to anyone else. Living at your potential. That's where I worked it out, because I didn't want to get into like sort of slimy, unattractive energy, because people can be that as well. I'm better than you
yeah.
because I lift weights and stuff. That was never it. Does that, yeah, it's fair to say?
I think that's actually fair to say. Interesting that we kind of go back to that stairs kind of metaphor. So, like early on, that was an issue. This last week, I was with my daughter up in San Francisco in a basketball tournament, and I was in a hotel, and I took the stairs every time, and I was
Love
on
it.
the third floor,
Love it.
and
Love it.
and then I took the stairs every time. By the time I get to the third floor, I was like, okay, fine, I could do another 3 flights of stairs. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because a year ago, that person would have been huffing and puffing and kind of like, I need a 5 minute rest,
Yeah.
And so it's just, I mean, it's all this wonderful combination of things that are coming together. At least for me, the idea is that I was blessed because I kind of had a framework already. I was kind of semi-athletic even before this happened, so I kind of had that advantage.
Hmm.
Um, it was just, I think, for me, in terms of all of this, the big difference for me is just kind of the mental approach and kind of how to, and not necessarily because when you're doing the work, you feel great. It's the concept of setbacks and how do you deal with those setbacks,
Hmm.
And I think that's been kind of the biggest change for me is like, okay, you had a setback. Does this, do I, go from kind of doing really well to kind of going back to the way I was? I don't want to do that. I really
Yeah.
don't. So if I have 1, 2, or 3 bad days, I don't let it spiral into 5 or 6 weeks. And that's the biggest, I think that's the biggest difference now in terms of starting this, is the idea is even if I have a screw up or a mess up, or I decided, what, the hell with it, I'm going to give myself that nice meal.
Yeah.
I,
Take the
I'm
day. Take the day off tracking.
Yeah, and then just get back to it.
Yeah.
And the idea of like today, it took yesterday off, but today I have, after this, I'm going to hit the gym, and I got a CrossFit workout and your workout. So it's funny because I'm on Christmas vacation right now. I go back on Monday. So for me, I get to do these 2 workouts, and for me, that's always, and then that's just kind of this interesting mind shift for me is, and I think that's another thing that kind of the underrated thing is, in this process, I get to do this instead of I have to do this. It's kind of this
Yeah.
interesting mind shift. And I think that's kind of another thing that has helped me in terms of this process is I get to do this work. I have
Love
an
it.
opportunity to do this work. And so
Can
I
I
think
ask you? Can I ask you? I love that. I get to do this. That switch from I have to do this. I get to do this. Doing it in the past by yourself. I have to do this. Now doing this longer, being consistent for 9 months now. I get to do this, and I'm enjoying it, and I know all the things. What you said there before was this. It felt if tell me if this is a fair characterization. Before it was an all or nothing mindset.
yes,
I'm 100 miles an hour, and I'm killing it, and I'm crushing it
yes,
CrossFit. But when you have a bad day, screw it, I'm done. Going
yeah,
from an all or nothing to progress over perfection and consistency. Would that be fair to say?
yes.
Yeah.
Consistency. I mean, that's the biggest thing, concept of all this, all is consistency.
Mhm.
I mean, I was consistently overeating. That led me to 345 pounds. Now I'm consistently working out more and, watching. I think an interesting thing is the idea of, being swayed by all these kind of different types of diets, keto, the the carnivore diets, because all these things are just, there are people out there on the internet, they look fantastic and say, I eat 500 grams of beef a day, and you got to find what works for you and what
Yeah.
and I think one of the great things about the program here, it was very simple. It's like eat good food,
Yeah.
eat real food, okay? Eat real food, and so I think that was one of the big kickers for me as well. Is that for the most part, I could still have, all the things I enjoyed, but I just couldn't. It's the quantity, If I had a half,
Not eating at our capacity is
yeah,
different. We can't eat at our capacity.
oh, absolutely, kind of, destroying a box of donuts, yeah,
Can I ask you? Can I ask you about that?
yes,
How has how has making, because you're not on a diet, you've made dietary changes. How does it feel with the dietary changes on program with a view to living this way the rest of your life?
sustainable. I think that's the kind of the term that it's the idea of sustainable. This is what I can do.
Yeah.
It's, it's not kind of like, you know and I know maybe later on, if there's a certain way that I want to look, kind of the incorporation of macros and all that. I think the brilliance about this system and your system is it's ridiculously easy. It's just, okay, here's your diet, here's your calories, here's what the macros you want to. You don't necessarily need to hit them all consistently, but this is what I would like you to do. You want more protein, real food, and that was, I think that's, so you're eating, for me, I was eating scrambled eggs and egg whites and,
Chicken skewers.
chicken skewers, so many chicken skewers, the okios, and there's also this kind of wonderful thing that you, once you kind of get started in this work, and you see this in the community, that there's a bunch of you found you on Instagram. There's a bunch of other things that you'll see, maybe because it's the algorithm now that is locking me, but all these kind of these snacks and things that are geared toward. I mean, it's also maybe the part of the fad as well. High protein, high fiber.
Yep.
I think for me,
but it works. It works, and you have been able to. I hope it's fair to say as well. If you and Tracy are going out for a date, enjoy it. Celebrate, enjoy it. But then next day you're just going back to your normal program cadence, and nothing is off the table. Especially in the early stages, this is important. Nothing's off the table unless it's going to trigger you into a binge. And in those early weeks, days, and weeks and months, you really want to give yourself the best chance. For me, it would have been donuts. Don't eat donuts because I can eat 6 donuts at a time. Don't go towards but have a Milky Way, so eat things that you like unless it's going to trigger you into a binge. So I'm very glad and love to hear you say, Joseph, it's sustainable, and you've got that toolbox now where, a balanced lifestyle. What about, can I ask you, are you starving and miserable all day with your dietary changes here on program?
No, for the most part, no. I mean, there are certain days, again, when you work out, or for me, it was kind of finding that balance. For me, I front load my food for most of it, so I have a big breakfast, and then kind of, eat like a king, eat like
a prince and a pauper.
Yeah, eat like a king in the morning, eat like a prince, and then eat like a pauper. That's still kind of an ongoing process. So I'm still kind of dealing with that, but for me, it's kind of like finding those tweaks.
Yep.
I haven't mastered that yet because I still get those late afternoon snacks. But it's the idea, like the skill set. The biggest thing, I think, a couple of things is the introduction of, like, you're drinking that 0-calorie atomic
seltzer.
Water seltzers from Costco. For me, it's the discovery of zero calorie sugar, sodas, the Coke Zeros, the Diet Cokes. Coke even have a cherry 0-calorie Coke, and that's been kind of like my staple for now. So using that in the afternoon. So for me, that's kind of still an ongoing process.
Yeah.
So I still have, that's one thing I still need to kind of work on. But in terms of, like, am I always hungry? I'm always, Sean, I'm like the Hulk with food. I'm always hungry. It's just the idea of managing it, And I think that's the idea as well. Do you have the tricks of the trade,
that there is, like, I think for guys that have, I put on 40 pounds in 2.5 years, 80 pounds in 5 years pace. So I was like, my capacity was massive. And I think for dads that, do get to a place where we're heavy and we're not feeling good, it is always in the back of our head. But that little voice that rationalizes stuff, it gets quieter and quieter as you build that mastery over these different areas of your life as well. Okay, I have taken up your time, but I have a few more quick questions I want to ask you. You bought a truck. You bought a truck. And I want to ask you, please share very briefly if you care. How does it feel getting into your new lovely truck, 100 pounds lighter than your previous vehicle?
It feels wonderful, Sean. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. Now, interesting because I had a truck when I got married, turned it in, and so I didn't have a truck while I was kind of ascending the ladder in terms of my weight. But with this one, I have to step up into it, and it feels great. It absolutely feels fantastic. And it just, I mean, it probably would have been kind of an extra, gruntish step that I would have to take, but
Yeah.
it feels nice to kind of, it just feels nice to kind of be active, regardless if it's a truck or,
Yeah.
being able to
Tell
take.
us, tell us, what are you experiencing now? 100 pounds down. What is standing out to you?
I have more energy. There's also a greater sense of confidence. Um, just in terms of myself, there's the physical recognition. I think we touched on that earlier. A lot of physical recognition about what I'm doing and kind of congratulating. I think that adulations, a lot of that feels good.
Good.
And there was not a lot of that early on, but now it's kind of like, hey, especially people who haven't seen you. I have like former students who haven't seen me in 3 or 4 years, and they have to look at me with a double take. It's, again, a skinnier version of myself.
Leaner, leaner. You're not skinny. Lean, lean.
Leaner, leaner and meaner. I think it just feels good. The idea is that I'm not huffing and puffing all the time. I'm not bent over on my knees if I, walk, 50 yards.
You started running. You
Yeah,
started running.
I started running.
You're running.
I hate running. I absolutely hate that shit. But I started running.
What was the deal? The deal was you said it, you were in the 280s, you're under 300, and you said, Sean, I want to run. And I was like, okay, can we do that when you're like, I think it was 265?
Yep.
And now you're running.
Well, now I'm running.
And you hate it. But how does it feel running?
It feels, it's fantastic. I get, it's one of those interesting things. Like for me, it's always the dread. And then once you've finished it, it's like, I'm so glad I did that. I think that's kind of a metaphor for this process.
Yeah.
The idea, there's this certain level of dread that you have. And then once you kind of make that decision and you go for it, and then you go through the process, and then you see the work begin to happen, and you see that weight begin to fall off. And then again, for some, it's this kind of oscillating kind of, some weeks you lose 3 or 4 pounds. Other weeks you'll put on a half a pound, and you're doing the same thing. And I think that's kind of another interesting aspect of understanding weight loss is that, you got to have, we talked about this the other day because I had a spike, and it's just the idea of not kind of like, in the past, I would see a huge spike. I'm like, oh crap, here I go again. I'm like, no, I've been here before. Now I know that, okay, get back to work. And then we had that wonderful conversation yesterday because I enjoyed myself in San Francisco, and, I came back a lot heavier than I'd left, but, it's one of those things that, okay, get back to work, and then, I worked out on Wednesday. It was Wednesday. I'm going to work out today.
And then you lock that in. So just if you're watching, Joseph went on a trip to San Francisco with his daughter. He had a big spike. I actually reached out to him. I was off for holidays officially, but I saw that and was like, hey, Joseph, you doing okay? We had a call on the phone, and, all's good. He's not struggling. Held the line, the massive whoosh, and onwards he goes. But most importantly for you is now you lock that experience in and okay, the next time it happens, as every succeeding time it happens, you're like, okay, back to work. And I come, and then back in the new territory. Okay, I want to touch on this because I don't want to miss this. Most importantly, you're doing this for you, right? Because if you do this for you, everyone benefits.
Yeah.
How is it? What are the changes that you've seen with Teresa and your girls? You doing this work?
It's interesting, the impact. Again, I talked about this earlier. The kind of the work I see on the faces, and the pride they have. Dad, good job, and Joe, good job. And
what are they proud of you? What are they proud of you for?
I think they're proud of the fact that that I was being consistent, that I stayed with it. Because that's something I try to teach with my girls is, the idea of consistency, especially in a time place where everything, it seems instantaneous. We see people in social media, that look fantastic. It's that iceberg effect. You
Yeah.
see what's on the surface and you
Yeah.
don't understand what's going on underneath.
Yeah.
And I think for them, the idea is hopefully that whatever they have, whatever the struggles they have in life, if they're consistent and they show up with that consistency, um, that 9 times out of 10 things are going to work out for them.
Love it. Love it. And how does it feel as a dad that has gone from preaching consistency and things to like living a massive amount of consistency in this part of your life?
It feels better. But I know the job's not done yet. And here's another thing, Sean. It's never going to be done. I mean, we talked about there's a weight number I have in mind, but the idea is that this is more about a lifestyle. I don't
Yeah.
want to get to 225 and say, okay, I'm done with everything, and then
Yeah.
you'll bloom back up. It's the idea. Okay, I have a framework in place that I can use to basically, if I can bulk up, that's fine. If I want to stay at 225, if I want to go down to 205, for me, it
Yeah.
was just about being healthy and being present. And, again, kind of like, especially being 52, 53, the idea is that, this probably was my last shot at kind of doing this, in reality and kind of being, because, in 20, I mean, again, if you're 30 and like I can get this done in 20 years, I'm in my 70s, and that's just a different mindset altogether. Uh, for me, it was just about trying to be present in the here and now. I think that's what the idea of this, all this is the idea of being presence. Because again, I lost my father when he was 52. I turned 53 in about 3 weeks, and just being here for my kids doesn't mean that life gets any easier or anything like that. It's just that it's one less burden that I have to I don't have to bring that burden upon my family.
Do you feel unburdened with that mental thing, with that mental challenge of you're now down 100 pounds? Before at 345, you're thinking about mortality, you're thinking about what if something happens. Has that gotten better for you?
A little. I mean, I think again, people in our unfortunately, people our age pass away all the time. I feel better because what I can control,
Yep.
I controlled.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest thing. I can't. Anything else is out of my control. But in terms of my weight, in terms of my mentality, in terms of my approach to life, I can control that.
Yep.
And so it doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean sometimes some days are easier than others, but it's just get out of bed. Don't be comfortable. I mean, I'm on vacation now, so that's a little bit different. But next week, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm up, put that 80, 60-pound bag ruck on me, and I get my walk in. And then that's been kind of my consistent thing. And the idea is, even if I don't get a CrossFit workout or one of your workouts in, as long as that's the kind of the non-negotiable that gets done.
Yeah.
I think that's what stuck with me. The idea is that there has to be at least one thing that you have to do for yourself that's non-negotiable.
And I love what you said. There's a couple of things. Number one is your program you've got like 8 to 10 things that you can work on instead of you got to eat 500 grams of beef. If you're doing like a carnivore diet or something like that, you have a single point of failure. If you don't stick to the diet, it is a house of cards and it falls to pieces. You, Joseph, can drink your water, get your steps in, say no thank you, practice the STFUs. So I love that. But something you just said there is very interesting, because this is going to be my last kind of question here to you. Is this? You said, it kind of felt like, it wouldn't have been, but it would have felt like my last shot, being 52 to get this done, because in 10 years, 20 years, that's going to look different. What would you say to dads out there that are in a similar boat to where you were, but they're maybe thinking to themselves, it's too late?
Not too late. I mean, here's the thing, again, it goes back to what I said kind of earlier. Choose your pain, right? It's either kind of deal with this now, and it sucks now. It does. I mean, because the idea is that you're going to have to kind of take something away that you enjoy. All right. But here's it's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And for me, I chose the pain of discipline. Doesn't mean it was always perfect. Doesn't mean you're not going to fall short from time to time, but it's the idea of I'm going to be, hopefully I get to be 75, hopefully I'm 75 and leaner. Hopefully I'm 75 and, not on a bunch of different drugs that to monitor my blood sugar or diabetes or any other kind of condition. And I'm relatively happy and healthy, and I'm able to kind of still be a part of my kids' lives. And so, I mean, it's never, the concept of it being too late is utter bullshit. It's the idea of, what do just my father, Leonard James McDormand, get the shit done, and, and pick what you want to, pain of regret or pain of discipline. And it's, for me, it was never too late, because if I thought it was too late, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yep. I'd probably be closer to 400 pounds, So, I mean, I'm on this earth. I have this time, would it have been better if I had done this, 20, 30 years ago? Absolutely. But that's part of the learning process. That's part of the learning curve. And the idea is that, if I can do it, I'm an average Joe, pun intended again. And you lose 100 pounds. And it's interesting because, again, kind of like looking at myself at 345, looking at myself at 245, it's kind of this, for me, it was the same thing. It's just kind of like, I did this, and but you could see it. It's interesting, like looking yourself in the mirror. And the idea is that, I'm almost 1/4 of a person less than I was a year ago. Yeah. And, the idea of kind of thinking about, what happened in 2025 and everything, just kind of everything, and losing all that weight. And, it just kind of makes me, the idea is that stuff is still possible. Age is just a concept.
Yeah.
I mean, can I go out and run a 4.640? No, but again, that's not what I'm intending. If you're a father, all you want to do is be present for your kids and your grandkids and for the people that you love. That's the biggest notion is, the idea is find your why you're doing this. I think for you kept on kind of talking about Sarah and Grace and my wife. And that was always important for me, because for me, that's kind of like why I started doing this is, I want to be there for them. I want to touch back on showing, how do you deal with that adversity? How do you fall yourself and dust yourself off and pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get back to work? I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's just the idea of, keep moving forward. I'm loving the fact that we're doing this, 100 pounds, and it's a fantastic accomplishment. I'm not done yet.
Yeah,
I'm not done. And again, I'm never done. And so, I mean, I may stop kind of like doing the program, but the idea of what's in,
you will at some point. I will at some point.
The idea is that, the training wheels have to come off, and you have to let me go.
We have to let each other go.
We have to let each other go. But it's one of those things where it's the, the idea that having the awareness, the idea is that it can be done.
Yeah.
I can do it.
What if someone went to you in January, what date is your birthday? January 24th?
January 24th, yeah.
If someone said to you January 24th last year, Joseph, next year you're going to be 239 pounds, what would you have said to them?
I said, you're full of shit. No, I mean, just because at that point I couldn't see it. I mean, I honestly said, okay, what did I do? What got done? What was the switch? What made me finally cross the threshold? Because again, a lot of us know what we have to do. We stand at the precipice, and we know we have to kind of take that step. And so what finally pushed me over? I would have asked that question to my, what finally pushed me over? What concept? And was it and it's always a combination of things, Sean. It's never one. There's never one kind of cause. It's always this kind of river, these tributaries that kind of come together that kind of help flow and create this decision. And for me, it was being 52 was, my dad passing away at 52, my daughter still being relatively young, and I have a wife, and I have this wonderful life.
You have a beautiful. I was about to say you have a beautiful life.
And it's, it doesn't mean it's, and it is hard, and am I being a burden? And I think for me, when it finally comes down to that, and I think maybe that resonates a lot with some of your fathers. The idea is they don't want to be an extra burden. And honestly, if you don't want that, this is where you can. I mean, this can help. For me, this helped. I mean, the idea is that I'm much healthier today than I was, January 2nd in 2025. So, and hopefully in a year from now, on January 2nd, 2027, the idea is that I'm still this way, or even again, kind of a better version of myself. The idea, there's no such thing as perfection, but it's the idea of the process. I think that's just the idea, kind of wrapping around this, is the idea of the process.
You've seen that. Yeah, exactly. You've seen that in so many ways. We're nearly there. I've loved this. You're going rocking a weight vest of 20 pounds to 60 pounds. If you had a 70 pounds, you could probably put on 70 pounds now and carry 70 pounds with you.
Probably it would hurt like hell, but
then you would get stronger. You develop the shoulders and it would get stronger. And I think that's a good metaphor too. Also, now you're starting running. I am not going to be surprised if you run your 5K, your 10K, your half marathon. Like, that is there for you as well. If you continue to put in the work, it's a natural progression. Okay, Joseph, this has been absolutely awesome. And I think this conversation, in my mind, I was like, this will be half an hour. Joseph will run through this, but this has been such a fitting tribute to your accomplishment, hitting 100 pounds. I've absolutely loved it. Can I ask you, would you recommend to other dads out there not to work with me straight off the bat? Would you recommend, because I think this is more important, would you recommend having a conversation with me to see?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing. What's the worst can happen, right? I mean, here's the thing. You have a conversation and you say, Sean, no, thank you. You're still who you are. Or maybe the idea is you get a little uncomfortable. You have to kind of face, again, you're at that threshold. Maybe if people are having a conversation with you, Sean, they're on the verge. And so, what's holding you back?
I think I appreciate that, and thank you. But I think this is it, and this is my take. We are about to face reality. It's very uncomfortable. It's scary, but we know it needs to be done. And I think there are dads out there, and it's actually enlightening for me to hear you just say that. If I'm having a conversation with you, Sean, I'm there. I'm there at that point where I know something needs to be done. And I think for dads out there that have been following me for a while, they're like, okay, look at this conversation with Joseph. This is legit. I like what Sean and now Coach Dave at Isla Fitness, working with legends like Joseph, are doing. But it's that question of, am I ready to face reality and do this? I know I want to. I know I need to. But I think that's it. And thank you for the encouragement. Joseph, this has been fantastic, right? I love how we have moved over the last 18 months or something, from the initial, like, hey, yeah, I want to make changes, to 8 months later, we have actually finally have a phone call. Yeah. Here we are, 9 months later. You are in an incredible position. It's just going to get better. It keeps getting better. And I love it. And I can't wait to see, what we do in 2026 together. Joseph, is there, before I sign off here, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just to thank you. The idea is that, all of this is a process. And again, appreciate it. Again, I know it kind of got started off rocky, but for me, this has been it's been life-changing. And so I'm not going to say that I've enjoyed all of it, but it's the work. You've been fantastic. You've supportive. And I think that's another thing that, a lot of dads might, because it's an investment. But the idea is that you're investing in yourself. And the idea is that, you get someone who will keep you accountable. And if that's what you need, then fantastic. And if it's not, I would still do it anyway. Just because the idea is, just believe. It's the idea of take the leap of faith, trust yourself. The idea is if you're having this, if these thoughts are in your head and you're watching this and you listen me to draw on for however however long, and I'm just some average, I'm a teacher, you know it's worth the effort. Again, it sucks in the beginning, but it's about the process, and you'll be surprised about how it transforms you.
I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, just to finish off here before I hit pause in the recording here. If you're, and thank you, Joseph, and thank you so much for this time, and I love and appreciate the love as well. And I, just from my part, I love this. I love this. I love what this has meant for you. When I made these changes myself, I was like, I want to help other dads experience what I experienced through common sense and consistency rather than miserable BS that doesn't work. Joseph, his record was 35 pounds doing it by himself. I think that was with Noom. He's 104 pounds. We're targeting 120 pounds. And then that will evolve into like maintenance, or he might want to go, hey, I want to see what below 200's like. Now he knows that it's possible. If you are a dad and you are in a similar boat to where I was 7 years ago, where Joseph was last year, you feel like crap, you're ready to make changes, but you would appreciate and value structure, support, accountability. Is it worth having a conversation with myself? Because I want you to experience what Joseph has experienced. If it's a good fit for you, good fit for us, has to be a good fit. And you enjoy your version of what Joseph's transformation has entailed, because it's absolutely amazing. And if that's you, reach out to me, Sean@ilovefitness.com, say I'm interested in learning more about your launch program. We go from there, or chat on Instagram, DM me launch, or just say, hey, Sean, okay, what is this about? And it's very normal to be skeptical. It's very normal to be low on confidence and low on hope and high on doubt and high on fear. But as me and Joseph have talked about, is it going to be the pain of regret versus the pain of discipline? Is it going to be choosing the heart of you can't look at yourself in the mirror, or maybe getting up early in the morning and going for a 2 mile walk? Like, I know which one, and Joseph knows which one that looks like. Reach out to me. We have a conversation. If it's not a good fit, I'll tell you, or you'll tell me. If it is a good fit, this here is waiting for you as well. And we love what we do. Joseph, once again, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to hit stop on this recording here. Just hold on 2 seconds. Please drop me a follow at I Love Fitness on Instagram. I'm there on Facebook as well at Sean Clifford, ilovefitness.com, the website. Check it all out. You are one step away from turning it all around. That's up to you. Choose something better. Let's go. Okay, here we go.